It's Michael Popok, Legal AF. Yes, we've got an actual order from Judge Aileen Cannon down in Florida. Not a paperless order, but a 4 or 5 page order in which, at least on the surface, it looks like a win for the Department of Justice and the Special Counsel's office because she has denied defendant Walt Nauta, he's the valet butler, who's alleged to be the co-conspirator with Donald Trump in trying to hide and obstruct justice related to top secret classified documents. He's not going to have his indictment dismissed on the basis of selective prosecution, animus of the prosecutors going after him or his lawyers, because he didn't meet his burden of proof related to that. However, whenever you get an Aileen Cannon special, as in an order, you have to look at it several different ways. And you have to interpret things and read between the lines in order to reach conclusions. I'm going to do just that here on this hot take. Again, the surface, the reporting of corporate media is going to be inevitably Aileen Cannon. In a rare win for the Department of Justice, this denies Walt Nauta's motion to dismiss for selective prosecution and vindictive prosecution. A couple things here to note. Usually found in footnotes. You want to know where Aileen Cannon's head is at as a judge and her own feelings of animus towards the prosecution? Look to the footnotes. First, she says, both in her paperless order that accompanied this and in this order, that her decision to deny the motion to dismiss the indictment for vindictive prosecution and animus rises and falls on the burden of that Walt Nauta failed to make to support it. Donald Trump has a similar motion for vindictive prosecution and animus, and she is not taking a position. In other words, don't read too much into the fact that I have denied it for Walt Nauta. I haven't decided it yet if it applies to Donald Trump, who has his own independent burden. In order to be successful, as she properly notes on page 2 of the decision, a person who wins on selective prosecution dismissal has to show that one, similarly situated individuals who did the same thing were not prosecuted. That we call in the business comparators. So you have to give some comparators, some people to compare it to. Hey, look at, it's like whataboutism. Hey, look at those people. They did exactly or almost exactly what I did, and they didn't get prosecuted. And 2, you got to show, and you have to show that the prosecution against you was motivated by a discriminatory purpose, often animus or hatred for you by the prosecution. And the judge said, well, Walt Nauta didn't do either of those things, 2 things. He didn't give me proper comparators, individuals that did almost the exact same thing as Walt Nauta but weren't prosecuted, and absolutely no evidence of any motivation for discriminatory purpose. But then you got to look at the footnotes. The first footnote that gives me pause about what she's going to do next is footnote 3. On page 3. And here's what she says. Now, let me just frame this issue first. Stan Woodward is a Trumper. He's the lawyer for Walt Nauta. Thumbs up on that. He's a Trumper. He's the lawyer for Walt Nauta. For Walt Nauta, paid for by the Save America PAC and other Trump PACs. The only reason Walt Nauta has that lawyer is because Susie Wiles, a head of the dark political action committee and a major consigliere for Donald Trump, appointed Stan Woodward to represent Walt Nauta and to get him a lawyer so that he wouldn't screw Donald Trump in testimony or otherwise. That's the reality. So it was very well known that Stan Woodward and his partner were hired by the PAC to represent Walt Nauta. So there was a meeting. We've known about that meeting for a long time, which the government, the Department of Justice Special Counsel's office, invited Stan Woodward to come in and talk about his client. It's no secret that the prosecutors wanted Walt Nauta to flip and drop a dime on Donald Trump. If he did, the case would probably be over by now. And so they met with the lawyer to try to talk about a deal. And during that meeting, and I've been to many Department of Justice meetings, and nothing of what I'm about to tell you surprised me, although it seems to have surprised the judge, who only worked the Department of Justice, not as a line prosecutor, but in the appeals department, which is where I'll just leave it at that. You know the old adage: those that can teach, and those that can't become fill in the blank. So, in that meeting, they were playing a little bit of hardball with Stan Woodward. They called him a Trump lawyer. You're one of those Trump lawyers, aren't you? Okay. And they also made a comment about, that he should play ball and his client should play ball with the Department of Justice, or his days, Walt Nauta's days of private planes and private golf courses, is going to come to a quick end. I mean, it's a little bit sarcastic. It's a little bit salty, but nothing that everybody wearing their big boy and big girl pants hasn't heard before dealing with the prosecutor. But to the judge, oh, heaven to Betsy, clutching of the pearls time, let me counsel and lecture the prosecutors about decorum. She says that during that meeting, I don't really know what happened on October 22nd, 2022, but nobody's denied that the comments about private airplanes and golf courses was made. And I want to remind the prosecutors, quote, that the court notes the heightened professional obligations expected of federal prosecutors who must maintain discipline, decorum, and discretion at all times, citing a case from 1935. Prosecutors got called to the principal's office again with Judge Aileen Cannon. I mean, she's got a lot of brass ones to be lecturing anybody about professional decorum and how to do their job, let alone the Special Counsel's office of the Department of Justice. But she can't help herself because there is a war going on in that courtroom, unfortunately. It's sandpaper. It's oil and water. It's, as they say in South Florida, it's mango and rice between the prosecutors and Aileen Cannon. And that's starting to reach a fevered boil in the courtroom, and she's taking a pot shot at him there. But that's not the only footnote that concerns me. The other footnote is on footnote 4, when she's discussing why, even if true, the conversation between the prosecutors and Stan Woodward doesn't rise to the level of proving evidence or demonstrating evidence of animus and hatred and vindictiveness by the prosecutors to go after Walt Nauta because Stan Woodward is a Trumper. I mean, that's really his theory, right? This is that whole lawfare theory. But what she does say in footnote 4, and a little bit of a breaking news down here, she said the court takes no position on what actually transpired at the meeting between Stan Woodward and the special counsel prosecutors, nor does the court infer misconduct on the part of the prosecutors, or, she's trying to be even-handed here, or doubt Mr. Woodward's representations that he has conveyed his honest recollection. In other words, I'm not taking sides as between who said what. It's like Trump. There's good people on both sides of the Nazi and white supremacist march in Charlottesville. Or as I just heard Robert F. Kennedy Jr. say, is that if he ever got to be president of the United States, he's not going to take sides about what happened on 9/11. I don't know. There's good people on both sides of the Saudi terrorists and the more than almost 4,000 people that died on 9/11. Let's leave that aside for a minute. I just had to throw that in there, though. So the judge isn't going to take sides in footnote 4 on page 4 about what really happened during that meeting. The court understands, however, that the special counsel's office at Jay Bratt, who's the one of the lead prosecutors there in the case, voluntarily contacted the Office of Professional Responsibility in the Department of Justice, the OPR, to make a self-referral of that matter. Let me explain that. Jay Bratt was attacked publicly by Stan Woodward, that Stan Woodward felt that he was getting steamrolled and he was getting sharp elbowed by Jay Bratt in the meeting. And as any good line prosecutor or special prosecutor is going to do, rather to get ahead of the story and to get some guidance on his own personal ethics as a prosecutor and a bar member, he went and sought guidance from the Office of Professional Responsibility. That office has decided to hold its investigation in abeyance until the case is over. She also notes that in footnote 4. And just as an aside, good lawyers pick up the phone and call ethics hotlines related to their bar, their bar license all the time. Probably I've done it half a dozen times in my own career. There's a special hotline that you go to if you want to discuss your own conduct. You can also call and discuss another lawyer's conduct and get guidance about a possible grievance. But you can also get guidance on your own conduct, either before it happened or after it happened. And that's just called good lawyering and good ethical lawyering. And most law firms, for instance, have a general counsel within the law firm that you can go to as a lawyer to talk about ethical conduct or your conduct that's been challenged. Same thing in the Department of Justice. That's all this is. But she does go on to say at the bottom of page 4, because the referred matter is at this point collateral to this proceedings. In other words, she's denied the motion. The court recommends, but does not direct, that the Office of Professional Responsibility take the necessary steps to preserve evidence for its inquiry as it deems proper. Like this is going to be an administrative issue on ethics. I'm not getting involved. Now, what concerns me is what this doesn't say. It doesn't give us any indication whether she's going to rule against Donald Trump on vindictive prosecution. I already have a hot take out there that I think she dismisses the whole case based on the immunity decision and or finds that Jack Smith is illegitimately appointed and therefore the prosecution should be dismissed. But let's put that aside for a minute. What else can we read about this? Nothing. Even if they fail here to get their case dismissed, Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira, the co-conspirator, if she gets rid of the entire case against Donald Trump on basic evidence grounds and finds that all of Donald Trump's conduct is really conduct that was committed while he was the president and had official immunity, an absolute immunity, the decisions what to take and what not to take to Mar-a-Lago were all made while he was president, and she dismisses that case, she's going to kick the case against Walt Nauta also. Not on this grounds, but just on other grounds, especially if she gets rid of the special prosecutor or the special counsel as being illegitimate. So these are always these small Pyrrhic victories. Trust me, nobody's popping champagne corks over at the prosecutor's office having gotten this ruling. Like, yeah, we won one. We are not anywhere near, the summit of Mount Everest in this case because of Aileen Cannon. If we're at base camp 1, I'd be surprised. And the prosecutors are climbing this mountain without oxygen at this rate, and with no help from the judge, who is bending over backwards to benefit the criminal defendant in this case in a way she's never done historically in her courtroom. So say people that regularly appear in front of her. So we'll continue to follow and try to make sense of the sometimes what appears to be illogical and senseless decisions by Judge Cannon in the Mar-a-Lago case. Only one place, right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. Join me on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where we curate the top 4 or 5 stories at the intersection of law and politics on the top-rated Legal AF podcast. You can also pick us up, besides on YouTube, on MeidasTouch. You can pick us up on all major podcast platforms. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Enough! Send him to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.